Welcome. The Process Director Suite from Select Business Solutions provides a practical approach for establishing, managing, and improving your organization's workflow and software development life cycles. This video will present a brief introduction to two of the tools in the Process Director Suite for defining and/or improving upon predefined processes, and then building projects that incorporate those processes. You define the processes needed to accomplish your task, or pick from a set of preloaded processes that depict industry best practices. The tool you see here is the Process Director Studio. I have selected the Perspective repository, which is included in Process Director and preloaded with best practices for component-based solutions. Process definitions for other industry standard life cycles, such as waterfall, may be found in another repository that is also included with Process Director. Notice that the Repository tab is selected, showing all the processes, techniques, tools, resources, products, risks, and patterns that have already been defined and preloaded should you choose to use them. The processes with the gear icon are life cycles, often the starting point of a project. For instance, this is the Select Perspective life cycle. It is documented with useful information for helping you decide whether this is the appropriate life cycle to use for your project. Every process consists of sections, as you can see here in the table of contents, that define the steps performed for that process, conditions that must be met, entry and exit conditions, before starting or completing the process, risks, techniques, tools, helpful to the process, metrics for measuring productivity, as well as many other useful aspects of the process. A diagram, let's scroll down a little bit, gives you a sense of the steps performed for this life cycle. The description may contain graphics and HTML that help document that process. For instance, I'll pick another life cycle, web-driven development, where you can see that an image clarifies the business model for this approach. Back to the Select Perspective life cycle, this diagram shows multiple layers of processes. Processes are hierarchical. This process has 3 steps: supply, manage, and consume. But each of these steps are in fact processes too, with their own description, steps, and other process information. You can drill down into these processes either by clicking links in the diagram or from the steps section. Let's go to the steps section, which describes each of the steps and specifies other criteria, such as whether the step is optional, iterative, or may be replaced by another process. Whether you are defining your own new process or customizing an existing process, you can edit the steps to add new steps and specify criteria that determines how that step is used. This is where you can enter the process description and mark characteristics of the process. For instance, I will bring up the properties for the manage step. And you can see the description or summary would be entered here, and that there are characteristics such as iterative, optional, concurrent, time-boxed, and so on that can be applied to that step. Formulas may also be specified to aid in project design. They are indicated by a magic wand, which I will click on here. And you can see that in this case, the formula specifies 7 questions separated by the OR operator, which is this vertical bar. These questions will be posed when building the project, and the process will be included if any of them is answered affirmatively. Otherwise, it will be excluded from the project. We'll see this in action later when we build a project. The questions are defined in the lower portion of this dialog. You can add a new property, a new question if you choose to. You can pick one that's already defined, and you can add it to your formula if you like. This gives you an idea of how Process Director Studio is used for defining the processes that will be used for building project life cycles or workflows. Studio is used to define your organization-wide standards for building predictable, cost-effective project plans. The processes, techniques, resources, and so forth that are defined here will be reused by many projects, streamlining the building of those project definitions. Of course, you can choose to use predefined life cycles as is if they fit your needs. Now let's see how to use this metadata to design your project definition. I'll switch to the Workshop tool. It looks very similar, but this is Workshop in the Process Director suite. Clicking New allows me to start a new project. It actually brings up a wizard for building that project. I'll click Next to get to the next step where I enter the project name. And then continue on to the next page in the wizard. It gives me more information about how to use it. Continue on. The first question is now being posed. Does this development represent a life cycle as opposed to a phase or a stage? I'll say yes, this is a life cycle, and continue on. This Agile wizard streamlines the process of building the project, including gathering of requirements and matching the necessary resources. At this point, I pick the life cycle that I want to base it upon, which will be Select Perspective that we looked at in Studio. It's busy building the foundation for my project, and now it wants to tailor what it's already built. This process is going to be based on the formulas that were entered during the Studio phase. You'll be presented with a list of questions for customizing your life cycle. As you can see here, click on a question to see a description that should help you to answer that question. To answer the question, click on the question mark to toggle through a no answer, true, yes, I want that, or undecided. And you can leave a question unanswered if you wish to and come back to it at a later point. I'll answer no to all these questions for the purpose of this demonstration. Notice that this was telling me that it was about questions relating to the optional step, technical architecture delivery. So whether or not that step is included in the project is going to depend upon the answers to my questions here. And that depends upon the formula that was coded for defining that optional step. I will continue to the next page, asking me to confirm the change that it is making to the project based on the answers that I just gave in the previous step. I'll continue. And now it's asking me about another process that is optional. This time I'm going to choose to just continue on to the next page and leave some of these questions unanswered. Notice that a couple of the questions are repeats of questions that were asked for a different process, and so they have already been answered. Now here we have questions related to the optional step manage, which was one that we had looked at when we were looking at this life cycle in Studio. I'll answer no to all of these questions. To see the effect that it has, we would expect that the manage step will not be included because we had looked at that particular formula and saw that at least one of these questions had to be answered positively in order for that step to be included. At this point, I'll just click the Finish button, and anything else that needs to be done in this wizard we can do later. Here's our project definition, my project. You can see it has supply and consume steps, but not the manage step, since we answered no to all the criteria for including it. Now let's take a look at the steps in our project. We can see that the consume step is marked as preliminary, and a tooltip shows you that that's the case. Let's edit it. Select the consume step, and you see that the preliminary icon over here, which says define step, is now available. If we click on this, we can go through the wizard for tailoring this process. Click Next, and you'll see the list of questions that we had earlier and chose not to answer. You get the idea. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'll just click Finish at this point. Since we have not completed that definition, we can still go through that process again at a later point. In conclusion, Studio users can improve existing development life cycles and processes and define new ones. The processes can be defined to be used in a highly flexible and customizable manner by specifying formulas that will be employed by Agile wizards when creating projects. Workshop users employ its built-in Agile wizards to customize these development life cycles, thereby satisfying the requirements of any project. The Agile Process Wizard asks questions and automatically builds the best process for your project. Project managers may report upon and review information from previous projects to estimate new tasks and understand how to deliver expected results. Additional tools are available for collaborating with team members and defining and recording process metrics that can assist in process improvement for the next project. You increase productivity by reusing tried and true processes, improving upon processes, and faster process management.